Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm just coming on to make a very quick impromptu video about the Mercury Retrograde in Virgo happening from September 9th until October 1st of 2022. You can check the description box below for dates and shadow periods. Usually about 2 weeks on either side of it. There's a pretty strong shadow of Mercury retrograde. But yes, I thought that this would be a good thing to talk about really quickly because it's a very chaotic time for a lot of people with some major changes going down, which I hope to make specific videos about some of the other changes happening right now, some of the other transits. But yeah, Mercury retrograde in Virgo, what's different about it? Well, whenever Mercury goes retrograde in one of its home signs, like Virgo or Gemini, it's way more it's way more intense, you could say, or it's just way more visceral and notable because you have kind of like the double Mercury energy, the fact that it's in Virgo. Then we also have Uranus retrograde at the same time, which is the higher octave of Mercury. So we also have Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, so we have a retrograde grand Earth trine happening right now. So perhaps this is one of the most intense Mercury retrogrades we've had in a while, and it's changing up our material reality drastically. The fact that we have all of the Earth signs represented by retrograde planets right now. I think that one of the symbols of sort of incarnating during a time where we have this type of transit is some type of mistreatment of our own selves or some type of material misplaced energy. So there's some type of misplacement of energy that's come in. There's some type of maybe flawed premise or flawed mindset about how a certain goal orientation or how a certain regimen in our lives, Mercury retrograde in Virgo, and the thought about daily habits, the thought about a regimen, the thought about routines, there's something a little bit off there. And because whatever sign Mercury goes retrograde in, especially when it's not just a dead ringer Mercury retrograde, but really impacted by a lot of the other planets like Uranus and Pluto in this sense, it's always trying to set something right when it relates to mindset, when it relates to communication, regarding what sign it's in. So Virgo is the sign, it's ruled by the 6th house. Virgo is the sign of daily routines, regimens, consistency, repetition, task management, time management. But it's also, to me, Virgo is also the energy of directly being able to solve a problem. It's problem solving. I always think of the archetype of the Virago, which to me is something that says, I'm not going to skirt around this conflict. I'm not going to be passive aggressive. I'm going to stand directly in my power and I'm going to solve something. So I think there is something of misplaced problem solving represented that's coming in to be fixed now. So you might have a very expanded sense of what is off in your life right now. And as I was meditating before I was filming this video, I felt that a lot of people have to almost embrace the chaos or let the general chaos of this time, the change in world, the change in paradigm, be a good thing for them. Okay, so being able to see that, okay, so many people are kind of scrambling right now. So many people are, changing their lives, having huge life changes, crossing a threshold, crossing a barrier from before. Can I let myself do that as well? So I think this is a particularly difficult time for super loyal people, for people who try to keep things exactly the same, for people who are basically protectors or reinforcers of a certain material given, okay? I think this is the hardest time for those types of people. So very earthy people, especially like a Capricorn, but also like Scorpio in some cases, or even Cancer energy could really be struggling right now because of a need to keep things the same or a need to achieve a certain level of guarantee, predictability, expectation, or pattern setting. So there's a disruption in the pattern happening right now. There's a disruption also in the personal narrative, in the personal consistency, and perhaps also the output. Again, the 6th house, the sign of Virgo, is about jobs. It's about daily things. And for a lot of people, that's the money that they work for, that's the job that they do, that's their specialties as well, their professions, the things that they do with their energy daily or routinely. So there could be a disruption there. I'm seeing a lot of people changing jobs. I'm seeing a lot of people not being satisfied anymore by the way that they've been routinely outputting their energy. And I think that for people who are kind of on the fence with that type of thing right now, this is actually a very opportune time to readjust your output Okay. I think that a lot of people are trying to push it through. A lot of people are trying to like get to a certain, I don't know, like a never ending kind of like 6 months out thing where it's like 6 months from now I'll do it, or a year from now I'll do it. And the time keeps passing and they never make the change. So this Mercury retrograde in Virgo is very opportune for actually allowing all of the changes happening right now to be your chance to do some of the changes you've needed to do. Because I don't think that people really hold it against anyone right now for changing up their narrative, for changing up their work style, or for making their life more right for them. Because I feel that with this retrograde grand Earth trine of Mercury, Pluto, and Uranus, to me, it says that there's something way off about people's like material philosophies, about people's like budgeting, people's diets, people's philosophies, also about repetition and consistency. To me, it feels very debilitated right now, like people almost contracting themselves out in a very dangerous way, or in a way that's inhumane. So there could be a sense of like inhumane work contracts right now, inhumane labor, inhumane daily routines, inhumane diets, budgets, anything like that could tip to the inhumane side with Pluto and Uranus, especially the Pluto and Capricorn. The point at which should be soon around the time this video goes out, or within that week, the point that Mercury retrograde in Virgo trines Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, I think that a lot of people are going to wake up and see, oh my God, I'm like really damaging myself with my daily patterns, with my work, with my, for some people, it's going to be like self-employment, or just their traditional level employment as well. I think that the construct of employment and the construct of contractual labor is going to be really rethought over this oncoming few months, especially as we build up to a Saturn-Uranus square also happening in October. That's applying at the same time. So Saturn is also involved in this transit, and of course that's going to be quincunx, this Mercury retrograde, square Uranus and Taurus, and then semi-sextile to Pluto in Capricorn. These orbs are not quite in, but I still, because Mercury is moving so fast, retrograding over it, and we're going to have like the sun and moon activating it, it gives it a wider orb. So I don't know, everyone. I'm kind of like getting tired of people doing this like, I'm never going to make the change, or like, I'm still not ready to make the change. I'm still not ready to treat myself better. I'm still not ready to do what I know my body needs me to do. I'm still not ready to stand in my purpose. I'm still not ready to do this. I feel that this sentiment is lingering as we enter this Mercury retrograde. And I think that by the time it goes direct, which is going to be really close to these Saturn-Uranus squares, October 1st, it is going to station direct, I believe, if I remember properly. And then, of course, it will move back through its shadow up through the first week or two of October. And then we're going to have like that exact Saturn-Uranus square. This is going to be, for some people, a very debilitated, chaotic time if they're being inhumane with themselves, or if they're enforcing a certain inhumane kind of resource mindset, or an inhumane series of efforts and trials to maintain, especially like a certain tax bracket or a certain lifestyle or something. Because again, this is all the Earth energy. We also have the North Node in Taurus right now too. So themes of lifestyle, budget, money, all of that stuff is very, very much at the forefront right now. And the way that we are attached to those things, the way that we feel secure, and the illusion of whether or not it is security. Also, I think the body is really going to be keeping the score through this Mercury retrograde. Like, it's very possible to see very negative outcomes, like over the long term, just popping up during this Mercury retrograde. So it's not going to be like, I don't think with Mercury retrograde in Virgo is it going to be like acute injuries or acute problems, but the results of like, you know, a daily habit that's been really negative for a long time, definite possibility for stress injuries, moving back up to Saturn, Uranus square. So the part of your body that you rely on the most in order to do your job could be very stressed during this time. And then we ask the question, like, can I push even harder? Can I work even more hours? Again, I think that we have to really have a new relationship enter about why we're so connected to certain resource, inhumane resource connotations, and why we're also not allowing other possibilities that might be much more lucrative or fruitful in time. Okay, so to me, I feel that a lot of people are placing aside future potential for present security. And that's something we're going to have to really take a look at during this Mercury retrograde as well. Why is that happening? Do we not believe in the future? Are we not buying what we're telling ourselves in our dreams? Are we not buying what we're actually wanting? Okay. So I think one of the most productive things we can do in practice during this Mercury retrograde in Virgo is to really maybe keep a record, okay, of how we felt about everything that we did during this time. Okay, so the repetitive things that you do, the jobs that you do, the way that you work with the resources in your life. How does it feel? How can you really diagnose what your daily routine is and how that's creating a longer term momentum for you? And at least having that for the future will be a good thing. But I think really it's very opportune during this entire month of September. I think it is actually opportune to start getting it right, okay? Or to start implementing. You know, it's hard for some people because the Saturn-Uranus square applying is just not going to allow them to actually override the current structure. Again, it depends on what side of Saturn or Uranus you're on. Saturnian people, I feel, are going to be very loyal, even to a fault, to certain structures in their lives. And then Uranian people might really cast it all aside and advance towards something they're not familiar with, which I kind of like more for this because, again, all the retrograde Earth energy suggests that something within the material structures is just a little bit, it's like defaulted or it's not in the right time anymore. Okay, time is really coming up. Like here it is, it's 2022. You know, it's not 2017 anymore. It's not 2019 anymore. And then I think a lot of people can even connect the time period of 2019, like right before 2020, when they might have realized, well, it was already even like fading out then, or I was already trying to connect to a different energy line then. But then there was like a return to center or a return to what felt like security in 2020 with all of that volatility that came through. So we have to kind of think about like what was already leaving my experience by 2019 and how was I, you know, sitting with want and determination and aspiration for the future at that point, and what have the last 2 years now shown me about aspiration and how can I connect to that better with more trust and faith in my capability, because I think that a certain loyalty to structures which really cannot give that much anymore or are already presenting themselves as a decaying or lessening presence in our life, a reducing presence. There's going to be things reducing during this time, right? That's part of the South Node in Scorpio. That's part of the Mercury retrograde in Virgo. That's part of the general thing. And the repetitive Saturn-Uranus squares as well. There's some kind of reduction or some type of slimming down of the experience. So I think it's actually quite a decent time for experimentation or for implementing changes, even if you know it's not going to be perfect or even if you know it's not going to be right, because there's a lot of wiggle room for it, I feel, just because of how much things are changing right now and how much the quantums really are drastically transforming during this time with some of the worldly events happening. It's a big quantum shift in collective consciousness. Therefore, it's an opportune time to kind of like switch things up a little bit or to kind of get things right. And I also feel that the universe is reinforcing this very strongly for people who need to do it. This is a great download. I'm getting chills. So for the people who need a change in their lives, for people who need to really adjust things or reduce certain things in their life, but it's kind of maybe scary for them to think about changing things because they're so accustomed to a certain momentum or a certain structure. I think the universe has already supported it. So there could have been some type of major support, like maybe a great new relationship or maybe a wonderful windfall of material abundance that came through at the same time as this opportune quantum shift also happening. And it's almost like, can it get any more perfect than this? Can it be more opportune to kind of switch things up a little bit or to change some of the material aspects of your life, right? With Virgo season is always a time of year to do that naturally. But having the Mercury retrograde in Virgo suggests that there's a material defect of some kind or some type of structure that's way out of sorts or out of order. And the Mercury retrograde in Virgo is going to go back and look back all over that. And it's going to be like, this is a problem. That's a problem. You can't do this. This isn't sustainable. Sustainability is a huge key word with this retrograde and grand earth trine. Basically, retrograde grand earth trine means major, not only instability, but unsustainability as well. So we have to, I think, really take it to a micro level. Okay. I don't think it's going to at all be very helpful to be looking to like big things outside of myself that are unsustainable in the world and like projecting about all of that stuff. Some people need to do that. But I think for most people, they need to really take it down to their personal lives and really condense it and really find in their own experience what is unsustainable. And then if you can imagine so many people doing that, you basically create a much more macro theme of sustainability. So that's definitely, I think, the main aspect of this transit. But anyway, everyone, that's the main reason I wanted to come on and make this impromptu video today, was just to tell you that this is probably a good time to allow ourselves to start making some of the changes we've needed to make and to not keep delaying that, because I think there's room for glitches here. I think there's room for testing new things. I think there's room for delays or trip ups that usually come with big changes, okay? And I almost find this to be more opportune now than in the year of 2023, though I do feel that some of you, especially you super Saturnian people out there, I feel a lot of you keeping on until then, just to kind of like get yourself through the rest of this year or something, with like a feeling of security amid all of this insecurity. But I will say that this is kind of hard to explain, but it's a good thing to talk about. There are times that really shape up in the quantums where it's like almost completely unacceptable to like fumble, or completely unacceptable to like just detach from your own consistency and like throw caution to the wind type of thing. And then there are times where it's almost unacceptable not to do that. And I feel that this is almost one of those times. Okay. And yes, I feel that, okay, maybe not until like mid 2023. It could even be like September, like this time next year, before we veer off the opposite side of the polarity, where we move from this period of time where it's like almost like we need to make that change, or we need to throw caution to the wind or something. By later 2023, I think it's going to veer back to the other side, and it's going to be almost on that in that place where it's like going to be very hard for us to say, okay, I'm just going to try to change everything now. So we have this opportune window, and I will say that does stretch pretty far into 2023. But I think that the further that we start to get into the calendar new year, and especially into the astrological new year, so past March and April of 2023, it starts to feel really narrow, or it starts to feel really untrusting or almost desperate to not get things the way we want them to be, or to not allow ourselves the needed changes. So that's different for everybody. People are on a different scale. I think that a lot of people have already even done the changes that they needed to do, or are already stepping into their new lease on life and a very new way of facing the world. And I think that that's really opportune. And I think that that's a great testament to many people's bravery right now. And I think that a lot of people need to step into that as well, especially if it's well planned and if it's been something that's been on their heart for a long time. Like I'm talking like years at this point in time. So that's something else to talk about too. This video keeps kind of extending on. If you've had a change on your heart for like years at this point, I really think that it's hard to keep delaying that, or to keep saying no to that here, with all these changes happening, with all of these quantum shifts coming in. But at the same time, there is an opportunity in each place with it, really, where a lot of people can make this do even better into the new year. But I think it's good to be preparing for that, or to be ready to make any changes that you've needed to make. And on that note, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Comment below if you would like me to make a video about the world changes happening right now, like, for example, the death of the Queen. If you would like me to talk about that, I've not been sure whether I wanted to go much into that or not, but I do make historical content on my channel. In fact, I've even made historical content about that country. So it is precedented on my channel to talk about those types of things. And I likely will, whether or not I make a devoted video to it or not, I likely will talk about some of the quantum changes there, just because it is a big change for the collective, because that is such a her presence was such a kind of like deep construct for the world. So I think that it's a big change, and I think that that switch up happening there and that change happening there is a bigger symbol for a lot of the world right now of a change. Okay, so comment below if you would like that, and I will consider putting something together. Anyway, everyone, I hope you have a great Mercury retrograde. Thank you for tuning into this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new and turn on the bell notifications. I will talk to y'all soon. Have a great transit. Bye.